Welcome to the News 13 Coronavirus Virtual Town Hall. I'm George Roberts.
And I'm Marie Johns. While many businesses have been able to reopen recently, there are some that still can't.
And that's because entertainment venues have not been given any guidelines or dates to start offering concerts again.
Joining us on the program today is Craig Stelling from Penn's Peak in Jim Thorpe and Rich Berkowitz of the Sherman Theater in Stroudsburg. Thanks to both of you for being with us today. You both represent wonderful music venues in our coverage area that literally overnight became ghost towns because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Craig, let's start with you. What has the coronavirus pandemic meant for Penn's Peak?
Well, Marie, as you know, back in March when the governor kind of slammed shut the economy, we were forced to close our doors right before we basically had a sold out show with Styx that was coming up on, I believe it was March 13th or March 14th. And, ever since we've been busy rescheduling events. We're probably up around 60 events or so since then. That includes, banquets and weddings and national touring acts and telethons and everything of that nature. So it's been rather daunting, trying to navigate around that. The first couple of weeks, we didn't have any presence in the building at all. Then we started to gradually bring in some maintenance folks to kind of upkeep the building, and then, so we're hopeful that we get some guidelines sooner as opposed to later. We're fielding an awful lot of questions from, the community, people that want to see live music again. And it's just been, it's been very challenging. And I know we're not the only ones.
Absolutely. Rich, similar question to you. I mean, it's so confusing because everything's changing so fast and the guidelines aren't there. I know people are probably looking to you to know, and you're still trying to find your way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To basically shutter your business for the last 3+ months and eviscerate all of your revenue is a very difficult situation. But what's more difficult is not being able to plan for the future. Right now in the green phase, technically a facility that's, 18 or 20,000 square feet like we are could technically have 250 people, but that includes all of your staff, your bartenders, the performers, and the customers, which essentially for larger facilities means nothing. I mean, you can't operate national level concerts with those guidelines, and even some of the small shows that you do are really just fill-in, so you can't really survive off of that. So it's difficult to plan.
Now, Rich, I know you've been frustrated about all this, and what have you done so far when we're talking about reaching out to like our legislators, our officials? What have you tried to do?
Well, we're a part of the National Independent Venues Association, so we've been working a lot to do some lobbying, both on a federal level and of course on a state level. I mean, I'm regularly in touch with all of our legislators in our region, trying to just, get across 2 points. One, that independent venues need assistance because, again, when you completely lose all of your revenue, it's pretty difficult to sit back and wait. And secondly, the fact that there has to be a future plan. So even if that plan says we can't do anything until 2021, we just need to know that. Right now, the Pennsylvania state government has not indicated anything beyond green, nor have they given you any guidelines. And those general guidelines, I think, shouldn't apply to outdoor events and to other things. So it's not being treated yet on the case by case, but we've been very active in reaching out legislatively.
Craig, I know you've mentioned weddings at your facility. What's been going on with the weddings? What have you had to tell brides, and have they been rescheduled?
Okay, so this past Sunday, we had our first wedding, and it was a rescheduled wedding from May. I believe the initial date was like May 9th or 10th. And she was adamant that the bride was, that she wanted to have the wedding on Father's Day. We tried to push her a little bit deeper into the year, but she had this in mind that she wanted to do it. So we were able to accommodate. It looked a little different, with social distancing and, people wearing masks and, 6 feet apart, and you couldn't necessarily have the ceremony like with rows of chairs and all the people in it. But fortunate enough, it was a smaller event, so it didn't really affect us too much. We are getting a little bit of not pushback, but people that have events that are scheduled in September and October, they want to know what it's going to look like. And once again, to echo what Rich said, there's not a lot of guidance. We know that we can get it to 250 people in, and as he mentioned, that includes whatever production people, managers, staff. So we're kind of stuck at that 220 or 230 people mark to bring in. So they've been receptive for the most part. And we do have a lot of people that are pushing to next year too, 2021. They're just they're following like a lot of the rest of the country. And some of the people, they're just, as opposed to getting married in June of this year, they're pushing it to June of next year. It's not their first choice, but I think some of the people still want to have that traditional wedding, 250 people, and that the bride deserves to have that's her dream, that she deserves to have that.
Mm-hmm. Craig, what is full capacity, sold out concert at Penn's Peak? What are we talking numbers wise?
If we have a general admission show, which is basically, we clear most of the chairs off the floor, we're looking at about 1,850 people.
Okay, so taking that 250 number and moving forward, obviously, if you have to do that, you can't do that same show with that crowd. You're not going to make any money, and you're probably going to end up losing a ton of money if you were ever even able to go that far. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll echo what Rich said. 250 people minus your employees, minus production people, bartenders, restaurant staff, leaves you with 225 people. So if you have to pay a band or an actor, an artist, $25,000, $30,000, $35,000, there's just not enough revenue to go around. It's not fair, and it's not like the acts or the artists are going to take 75% off their guarantee, which would be nice, but they're not going to do that. And quite honestly, I don't think a lot of them are anxious to get out and start touring again.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, what would you like to see happen if you were able to set up the guidelines? Could you work at 50% of the house capacity and make it work, like every other chair or something like that?
Well, I think, first of all, my position is whatever it is that we have to do, we have to do. I'm not really advocating that we have to open tomorrow or, whatever the case is. But what I am advocating for is a clear guideline and, some sort of support to help us get to that point. Again, there's not a lot of businesses that can just be closed for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months and then just open up like nothing ever happened. So I think that's a big deal. In regards to the capacity, I think at 50% of standing capacity, you probably could make some stuff work, especially if that was the standard throughout the country. And then acts decided they were going to operate within those guidelines and make that work. Especially for an older building like us, social distancing becomes pretty difficult. In bathrooms, for example, where you don't have extra space, there'd definitely be some side swiping into that. Concession lines, again, old historic building, it's very difficult. And this is what we're hearing all around the country as a member of the Independent Venue Association, and we're talking on a weekly basis with thousands of venues around the country that all face that same type of issue. Some of the newer buildings might have a little bit more space and more bathrooms and maybe can do it easier, but certainly at historic buildings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's why we're hearing that some are saying the earliest they would allow venues such as yours to open up with concerts would be the fall of 2021, based on the fact that they feel there needs to be a vaccine. And of course, it's still going to take maybe 12 to 18 months to develop a vaccine. Craig, did you see that as, is that going to, hurt your facility? As far as, being able to wait that long?
Well, what you're, under that scenario, you're talking about wiping out the revenue for the entire year, and that's a tough one to swallow. I'd like to think that, there's something fourth quarter, maybe first quarter of 2021. But, once again, with no clear-cut guidelines and what we're going to do and what happens after the green phase, I don't think any of us, any facility that's, 1,500 seats, 2,000 seats, or 20,000 seats for that matter, can, work off of 250 people. If we're at 50% capacity, we could have 900 people in, that changes the tune a little bit. But, once again, too, you also have to think that are people ready to go out and be that close to other folks as well? So we've got to be cognizant of that fact too.
That's true. Now, this Friday, the rest of the state, save one county, will be green. And then we move ahead to what happens after green. And everybody wants to know what happens after green. You guys are still waiting to know, anything for you. But, I mean, even the general public is still waiting to know what happens after green for everyone. How is the communication, and has there been any, or is it really slow in coming? Do you feel like legislators and the groups that are helping you, is there any guidance coming at all? Craig, have you spoken with anybody on that level?
That's a good question. I feel that the information is slow. I wish it would come a little bit faster, and I wish it would be a little bit more robust so that we had a little bit more direction. It seems to me that a lot of the information is one way. It's kind of like we're making phone calls or we're sending emails and we're trying to get to the bottom of like, hey, what's a wedding going to look like under this? So, we're dealing a little bit with the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association for that. So we're, and it's tough sometimes just to get a straight answer. It would be nice to know, is there something after green phase? Somebody said something about a white phase. Is that a thing, or is that just somebody wishing that it was a thing? It's really, it's really tough to say. Is it platinum phase? Is it titanium? Who the heck knows? Pick a color, any color.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
true.
Rich, have you heard from any of the entertainers that have a concert scheduled at your facility? Have you heard anything from them? Are any of them uncomfortable about coming out and performing?
Well, again, for our facility, much like Craig's, the majority of nationally touring acts are all rescheduled. So, I mean, we don't really, everything got cleared out for the summer. So obviously they're all of the same mind. And for an artist, it really becomes not just what we can do, but also what can happen as a tour is routed, and understanding that when you don't have consistency across a region or a country, it makes it very difficult for them to figure out their budgets and costs and whatnot. So I think just like we are, they're all standing around, agents, managers, whatnot, talking about, well, when do you think it'll work, or what can we do, and how can this show happen? For a little while, they talked about this whole regional approach, which I guess we broke off from because, New Jersey and New York both have additional phases that show when things are going to happen. For example, in New Jersey, I think it's July 3rd, they could have up to 500 people outside, compared to our same 250. So we're using the same standard inside as we are outside, neither of which works for anything. There's lots of amphitheaters and other things that could certainly work under social distancing guidelines, if that were the case. So you had asked earlier about the flow of information. The flow of information is the newscast. In defense of our legislators locally in Monroe County, I think they are actively trying to provide information as they get it. I'm just not sure that they're getting the information either. I think they've all been pretty active about posting on social media. They've been responsive to phone calls or emails from my perspective. But again, they just don't have a lot to give us because all of this information is somewhere in Harrisburg and it's not really trickling down, I don't think.
Very true. Craig, what should customers know? I'm sure you've been hearing from them. I'm sure there's a lot of calls that come in, probably just confusion on their part. What are you telling them, and what do you want them to know?
Well, we're asking them to hang in there. It's kind of unprecedented times for everybody. As we force our way through, cancellation or reschedule event. It's tough, and we are fielding an awful lot of phone calls and inquiries like, hey, what's happening? We want our money back. And then early on in some of the refund process, there was kind of like a hiccup with Ticketmaster, and they had some issues and weren't refunding money, and then they were refunding money, and then they weren't refunding money. So it's kind of it's almost like the end around. And I feel awful sometimes for the ticket buyers because they're kind of like caught in the process. And then we're just trying to reschedule events, and sometimes it's really difficult, as Rich had mentioned, like when you're dealing with agents that might be in Nashville or California or Texas or something like that. They don't really know what's happening here. And we're just trying to reschedule events, and they're just, so we're actually moving events 2 and 3 times, which is kind of, not the best situation to be in, because then your ticket buying public they're confused. And
right.
So, honestly, it's been a little daunting, but, we're navigating through it. And for the most part, people are very understanding. They really are. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of pent up demand. They want to go out. They want to enjoy live music, whether it's inside, outside, at a place like the Sherman or a place like us. I think they just want to get out and do what they're accustomed to doing in the summertime, which is, go out, enjoy live music, have a couple of drinks, and spend some time with friends and family.
Sure. Craig Stelling, Penn's Peak, and Rich Berkowitz from the Sherman Theater. Thank you both for being with us.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Joining us next on the program is Mark Demko, the Senior Director of Communication for ArtsQuest in Bethlehem, which runs Music Fest. Thank you very much for being with us today, Mark.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Well, Music Fest, COVID-19, they do not go together very well, at least in the traditional sense. So you guys have put on your thinking caps and Music Fest is going to look way different this year. Tell me about it.
No, absolutely. First and foremost, we're excited that we are still able to offer a music fest for the community. We've been watching the developing COVID-19 situation very closely. We've been working with our city officials, following all the CDC guidelines and things like that. And as the spring has gone on, we've been looking at a variety of different scenarios on how we can adapt the festival this year. We were going through the different phases of the reopening process, just like everybody else. And we were not at all certain that we'd be able to offer Music Fest in the traditional format. So we shifted to what is primarily a virtual lineup. But we've had incredible support from our community. We're going to be doing 40 concerts that we will show on musicfest.org. We're going to do 40 additional shows that are going to be shown live from the Service Electric Studios in Bethlehem. So we're going to have 80 concerts that are going to take place over the 10 days of Music Fest. We're going to be doing a virtual 5K, art activities, a community art project, and then we're going to be looking at actually adding in potential in-person programming elements on the Steel Stacks campus. So it's all very exciting. While a lot of festivals, not only locally, but across the country have either postponed or canceled this year, there will indeed be a Music Fest, and it might be possible that there will even be some smaller in-person programming elements, including concerts, and we'll be looking to make announcements on that as we move into July.
Yeah, Mark, I would guess that you were talking about in-person like that. The Music Fest is July 31st through August 9th. So between now and then, I guess anything can still happen as far as the state and the state guidelines. And I guess that's what you're waiting for.
Absolutely. This situation is evolving, and, often it evolves not only by the day, but sometimes by the hour. So we're trying to stay on top of everything from the safety and health perspectives and guidelines, working very closely with our city. When we made the announcement about the virtual Music Fest, our mayor actually joined us so we could talk through all the different things that not only our organization, but the city is working through. So, for example, one of the things that we're looking at doing at Music Fest this year is bringing together 10 or 12 of our favorite food vendors and having them on site during the 10 days of Music Fest. So, people come to Music Fest as much for the food as they do for the music. We're going to bring some of those festival favorites who have been coming to the festival, 10, 20, 30 years, so people can come and grab their favorite food. That's an example of where we're working very closely with the city, the health department, so we can have a great experience for our patrons, for our vendors, for our volunteers, and for everybody involved. We'll be looking at the same things as we look to add in other in-person programming elements.
I'm sure people are very appreciative to know they're going to be able to get some of their Music Fest favorite treats, and regardless of what happens music-wise. Now, I know that when this all happened, you were pretty much set for this year. You knew who was coming. You knew what was going on. Your big events have been scheduled for a long time. How different is the virtual event going to be, and what have you lost through all of this? Some of the big venues, some of the big names, are they not coming and being part of this?
And that's a great question. The live events industry, like so many other industries, has been hit hard by the shutdowns that are part of the COVID crisis. And, the safety of everyone is first and foremost. It's paramount for us and for everybody. But we had to look at doing a lot of things differently. As we've gone through the process, one of the things we have been doing is trying to move all of our larger events at our main stage. So our headlining concerts at the Wind Creek Steel Stage, such as Shinedown and Darius Rucker, and others, we've been looking to move those to 2021. We've already moved 3 of the performances. We're looking at working with the other 4 artists to also reschedule for 2021. And we've only had 1 cancellation for our headliners. The National could not make their schedule work for next year, but all the other artists and their management have been great to work on. We're looking to move and present those shows next year.
Did people already have tickets for some of those shows? Had they been sold? I mean, are they holding on to them till they come maybe next year?
That's a great question. Tickets for a lot of the shows were selling very, very well. And we have given people the option. What we're doing is we're asking people to hold on to their tickets until we announce the new show date, until it's confirmed, and they can then use those tickets at next year's 2021 show. So, for example, we've rescheduled Darius Rucker. They can keep those tickets. They'll be honored at the new show date in 2021. Or they can, we're a nonprofit. We're giving the option. They could exchange them for gift cards. They could look to donate the cost of the tickets back to ArtsQuest. We are a nonprofit, and essentially since the shutdown on March 16th, we've lost 90% of our revenue streams. We went from planning a busy season, as you mentioned earlier, we do about 4,000 programs a year, to not offering a single program, and that happened overnight. So we're giving people an option to support us in a variety of different ways, including a giving campaign we just launched that's called Together We Will Fest Again, or they can request a refund. So there's a variety of different ways they can take advantage of the rescheduled performance date and or supporting ArtsQuest.
So Mark, for people who don't know, if anybody doesn't know what Music Fest is or what it's about, the whole idea is to support ArtsQuest, correct, and the things that you do throughout the year.
Music Fest was started in 1984 at a time when the Bethlehem steel industry and the Bethlehem steel plant was laying off people by the thousands. And it was a festival that began to bring the community together through music. It's grown to become the largest free admission, meaning there's no gate charge, music festival in the nation. As a matter of fact, USA Today Readers 10 Best twice named us the best music fest in the nation last year and this year. But the proceeds that are generated from this festival, and it attracts about 1 million people to enjoy 400 performers on 17 stages during the 10 days. Those proceeds go back to provide a variety of other free arts and education programs for the entire region throughout the year. Those include arts programs for at-risk youth. We do programs for veterans. We offer a variety of visual arts classes through our Banana Factory Community Arts Center. About 50% of all the programs that we do, the festivals and events throughout the year, are actually free for the community to attend.
I would imagine this was a tough decision to make, to decide that you weren't able to hold the traditional music fest and to go the virtual route. How did that all come about?
You know, it's something that we were talking about for several weeks as the COVID-19 situation was evolving. And it got to a certain point where you had to make a decision because the infrastructure to put up 17 stages throughout the city of Bethlehem is enormous. And when it got to the point where we were pretty sure that we would probably still be in the green phase, where crowd sizes were restricted to gatherings of 250 people or less, we had to make some decisions as to how we can continue Music Fest and how we continue to engage our communities. You know, they always say that, you know, the arts are really important. They have this power for bringing communities together. And certainly, I think people will need that now more than ever. A lot of people have been staying at home for a long time, and safety is the key, but I think people are going to start to want to come together and to celebrate and resume a lot of their normal activities in life when it is safe to do so, including enjoying concerts, plays, and other performances.
Looking ahead to this year's event, how challenging do you think it's going to be to actually make it all happen on a virtual platform? And do you think you're still going to attract, that 1 million people that you usually see?
Well, I mean, it's a totally different format, but one of the things that we started very early on, actually a week after the shutdown, is we started presenting virtual programming through something called ArtsQuest at Home. We've actually done about 500 different virtual programs, from live concerts to educational classes to visual arts activities online on our website, artsquest.org. So our staff went from presenting concerts and events to 1 week later doing digital and online versions of our programs. So we've had a lot of experience. And the other part that factors into this, as we move into the green stage, we're starting to open up elements of the Steel Stacks campus. I'm very excited to let you know that starting this weekend, we're actually gonna have our first 2 live concert performances at Steel Stacks. We haven't had a live concert since roughly, I think, March 13th, but we're gonna have 2 small performances, and people can come out and enjoy that free music. All they'll have to do is make a reservation for a table for outdoor dining, and then they can enjoy, you know, one of those experiences that people have come to expect at Steel Stacks. We'll be announcing early next week. We'll be doing a bit of our July 4th celebration, culminating with the City of Bethlehem's fireworks display. So we're starting to integrate some of these elements back in. That gives us great practice on how we can handle all the safety processes and procedures.
Mark, has the state provided any guidelines at all to you? Have you heard from the governor's administration? Has anybody come to Music Fest and said, look, we understand you have one of the biggest things happening in the state. Here's what we think.
We have been working very closely with our legislative delegation here in the Lehigh Valley. We've had a lot of legislators reaching out on our behalf. The live music and events industry has been hit pretty hard, not only locally, but across the nation. Americans for the Arts estimates the losses for nonprofit arts organizations are about $5.5 billion since the shutdown. And it's not just us, it's all concert venues, independent venues, some of your larger venues that do shows. Industry experts estimate that if venues don't open by the end of the year, there's going to be about $9 billion with a B in ticket sales lost. So that's something that everybody's working towards. There's an organization that has started called the National Independent Venues Association that's working to lobby on the national level. And as I mentioned, we've had a lot of great support from our legislators on the local level, and they've really helped us through the process. We're working with the state, the governor, and as I said, our city and our county, Northampton County, have been tremendous to work with. And so that's what's allowed us to start taking some of these steps forward.
Now, Music Fest has been around for many years, and I'm sure you have a very, very loyal fan base. What do you want all of them to know about just the challenges of this year and COVID-19?
So that's a great question. There's a couple things. First and foremost, it's important to remember there will be a Music Fest. It's likely going to end up being some type of hybrid event with the virtual performances, with some smaller in-person elements. And we still want to be able to bring the community together through music and art. People look forward to this. There have been generations, they come and then they bring back their kids and their grandkids and enjoy the celebration and the festival. And if people really want to support our organization, they can check out the performances, but they can also go to musicfest.org/together. And if they're interested in helping to support independent businesses, small businesses, ArtsQuest, and the festival, they can make a donation if they're able to help support and ensure that we can continue to supporting our businesses in our region and our artists and performers, and so that we can also make sure we come back strong as the Music Fest that everybody knows and loves next August.
Mark, why don't we take a moment to talk about this partnership between Music Fest and the Iron Pigs. What does this involve?
So we've worked with the Iron Pigs for several years, and they've done fest promotions for us to help to elevate the awareness of the festival, and it's a great community partnership. Well, this year the Iron Pigs are not playing ball, and as we've just talked about, Music Fest will not be in a traditional format. So we've come up with a package where people can purchase for $25. They'll get a special Music Fest mug and a Fester's cap, and then we're sharing the proceeds from that, and that's going to go back to support both of our organizations that have been shut down since this happened. So we've had great outreach from the community across the board, from our volunteers, our ArtsQuest supporting members, and our corporate partners. We still have 30 partners who are helping us present the festival this year. We couldn't do it without their support. So it's very exciting to see that everybody is still interested and concerned about this festival.
Well, Mark, we wish you the best of luck in getting this off the ground, or onto the screen, I guess, right? Thank you very much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to all of our guests on today's program, which is the last in our series of coronavirus town halls.
But we invite you to continue to get the latest local COVID-19 information on the Pocono Valley and Night Reports right here on BRC 13.